In 2009, a 16-year-old American-Indonesian model got married to the 30-year-old prince of Kelantan. What was said to be a beautiful union left people in shock as the young bride escaped from her prince to save her life just after 9 months of marriage. Why did she run away from her husband? And what has her life been like since then? Her revelations will leave you in shock, but to find out, stay glued to the end of this video. Before I continue, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and share this video. Throughout history, it has been a common practice for male royalties and nobilities to marry way younger female partners. Princess Diana was 19 years old when she married then Prince Charles, who was 32 in 1981. King William III of the Netherlands was 41 years older than his wife, Queen Emma, when they married in 1879. King Edward I of England was about 40 years older than Margaret of France when they got married. The royal household of Kelantan wasn't left out of this practice, as it's known that Sultan Muhammad V of Kelantan married Riana Oksana Petra, a Russian beauty queen, in 2018. He was 49 years old and she was 26. However, the marriage only lasted for a year. The rumor that spread was that the Sultan did not acknowledge the paternity of the son born to his former wife, Riana Oksana Petra. After their divorce, Riana took legal action to establish paternity, seeking a court in Russia to demand a DNA test from the Sultan. The outcome of the paternity dispute is not publicly known in detail. The legal proceedings and their results have not been disclosed to the public, and the matter remains private between the parties involved. Although the Sultan wasn't the first to marry a younger lady in the Kelantan palace. His younger brother, the Prince of Kelantan, Tengku Muhammad Fakhri Petra, and also the then Tengku Temenggung of Kelantan, the title refers to the noble rank within the royal hierarchy of Kelantan, Malaysia, meaning a high-ranking official responsible for maintaining law and order, commanding the police and army, and ensuring the safety of the monarch. On August 28, 2009, married an American-Indonesian model, Manohara Odelia Pinot. She was born on the 28th of February 1992 in Jakarta, Indonesia, to an American father, George Mance, and an Indonesian mother, Daisy Fajarina. In 1994, Manohara's parents got divorced when she was only 2. Daisy later married Jürgen Rainer Noack Pinot, a German citizen whose surname Manohara adopted. Manohara began her modeling career at a very young age. She gained significant attention in Indonesia and became known for her striking features and style. In 2008, Manohara's face was featured in Harper's Bazaar magazine's list of 1,000 Pesona Indonesia just before her marriage. Her inclusion in this prestigious list highlighted her as one of the prominent figures of Indonesia's fashion scene at that time. Manohara was also named one of Indonesia's 100 Most Precious Women by Harper's Bazaar Indonesia magazine. She was viewed as a heroine in her country and an inspiration to young women who aspire to be models in the future. She is known across Indonesia by her first name, which means thief of hearts in Sanskrit. In December 2006, Manohara was invited to a dinner held by the then Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak, and that was where Fakhri saw her for the first time and got swept by her beauty. She was just 14 then, and he was 28. He expressed his feelings for Manohara to her mother, Daisy, who didn't oppose. But for almost 2 years of the prince meeting up with Manohara, her mother was already by her side. But on one of their occasional boat cruise, Manohara alleged in a story she told the Jakarta Globe that she was raped by Fakhri, while her mother was in the adjoining cabin. Manohara, who was 16 at the time, never mentioned to her mother what had happened. "I was in denial," she said. "I knew if I changed my behavior, my mother would find out. I was embarrassed." Daisy later acknowledged she never saw the signs that Fakhri wasn't who he claimed to be. She believed he was charming. Then, in August 2008, Fakhri's mother announced that he was going to get married to Manohara. Manohara didn't want to get married to him, but she said she was persuaded by an aide to the royal family to go on with the ceremony, just to keep the peace. And after that, she could return to Jakarta. After much persuasion, she later agreed to marry Fakhri, but insisted that she would say nothing at the ceremony and she wouldn't sign any papers. Shortly after the marriage, Manohara returned to Jakarta to continue her modeling career, after she suffered physical and mental abuse from her husband. Fakhri kept calling, saying how terrible he felt about what he had done and wanted to apologize in person. He even bought a car for her on her birthday in February 2009. Manahara agreed to meet him in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, where they would also observe the Umrah pilgrimage in March 2008. But she didn't go alone. She went in the company of her mother and half-sister, Dewi Sri Asih. When the time came for them to return home, Manahara was forced into a private jet, while Daisy was left on the tarmac. Manahara could recall seeing her mother running after the plane from the window. Upon Manahara's return to Kelantan, she suffered more abuse and torture from her husband. She alleged that she was injected with tranquilizers if she wasn't in the mood to have sexual intercourse with him. She also had to look happy when attending functions with Prince, but deep down those smiles were a threat that could cause bodily harm to her if she didn't act cool. In a conference held after her escape, she said to the press, "I get treated like an animal. I'm just like his object. I'm like his toy. I'm like his property. I'm just in a room, and then whenever he wants to play with me, he goes in the room and does whatever he wants to me, and then that's it. I'm really like an object. I have no human right whatsoever there." You might be wondering how she got to escape the second time. It would have been more difficult if the Sultan of Kelantan, Ismail Petra, Fakhri's father, hadn't fallen sick. Fakhri and Manahara went over to Singapore to visit the sick king. But before the journey, a plan was already in place. A plan set by Datuk Kader Shah Sulaiman Niman Shah, a Muan UMNO brand chief, and a Malaysian, who was called by the palace to help solve the Manahara issue, as newspapers and TV stations in Indonesia were all keen on the story. He told them he wanted to hear both sides of the story before he could help. But on the day of the scheduled meeting, he only heard from Fakhri, as Manahara couldn't make it. Shah was in Jakarta to meet with Daisy when he received a call from Fakhri, saying they were all going to Singapore to visit his father, and he could meet Manahara there and hear her side of the story. But he warned him to come alone. Daisy, who hadn't spoken to her daughter in 3 months, wanted to go, but Shah told her it wasn't a good idea. Then he suggested that Daisy should communicate with Manahara through a third person to avoid being detected. Daisy agreed, and the third person, who was never mentioned, also agreed. Shah met Fakhri and Manahara in a restaurant in Singapore. He listened to Manahara speak, but Fakhri's presence limited what she could say to him. However, as the meeting was over and they got up to leave, Manahara gave a signal that she was not happy by scratching her fingernail on Shah's palm when they shook hands. Then she slipped a crumpled tissue paper with a note saying, "Help me." Fakhri and his entourage had gone shopping before leaving Singapore, leaving Manahara alone in her hotel room. This gave her a chance to speak with the third party freely as they went over her escape plan together. Manahara and her husband were together in the lift with their bodyguards, on their way to the car park. As soon as the lift stopped, Manahara refused to step out of the lift. The bodyguards tried to pull her out, but she told them that the camera in the lift was recording everything. They had no option but to free her. Immediately, she pressed the alarm button. The security staff, the police, Shah, and Daisy immediately appeared at the scene to see Fakhri dragging her out of the elevator. After much argument with the police, Fakhri let go of her. Manahara and her mother were immediately escorted by the police to Changi Airport, where they took a flight to Jakarta in the early hours of May 31st, 2009. Fakhri filed a defamation lawsuit against Manahara and her mother, following the allegations of abuse that Manahara made after her return to Indonesia. The High Court in Malaysia awarded Fakhri $8 million in damages in the year following Manahara's filing for divorce in May 2009. Manahara refused to attend any of the court sittings and challenged Fakhri to submit another lawsuit in Indonesia, where his influence and connections would not lead to a biased judgment. It's been 16 years, and Manahara, who is now 32 years old, still looks young and very beautiful. After her return to Indonesia, she continued modeling and even became an actor, starring in several movies and soap operas. In 2019, she ran as a legislative candidate for the Indonesian House of Representatives, or DPRRI, in East Java Electoral District 1, but was not elected. Manahara has admitted to leaving the entertainment world and is now an activist in an animal protection organization called Jakarta Animal Aid Network, which she joined in 2018 as a volunteer. Manahara's decision reflects a new chapter in her life, dedicating her time and efforts to causes she is passionate about. I've always had awareness and love for animals since I was a child, and I am happy that as an adult, I can take more concrete actions to help animals, said Manahara, as As an activist, Manohara is actively campaigning for wildlife protection on Instagram. Prince Fakhri, on the other hand, was stripped of his title in September 2010 after being suspected of having a hand in the shooting and the death of his brother's bodyguard. He was also stripped of the 2 royal awards that were bestowed on him by his father, the previous sultan. But as of January 2024, he was named the new Tengku Mahkota, or Crown Prince, of Kelantan by the sultan. Marrying royalty isn't always as it seems in fairy tales. Manohara and a host of other innocent women have suffered almost the same abuse in their marriages to royal families, but only a few were able to escape and share their stories. What do you think about the story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Also, hit the notification button to get notified when a new video is released. See you in the next video.